All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
State Representative Chuck Goodrich is joining us this week. State Representative, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here in studio. You are running for the 5th Congressional District. Obviously, a lot of candidates in this one. Why do you think you're the right person for the job?
No, thanks, Phil. Thanks for the invite. I think about that race. First of all, it's a huge honor. It's a huge honor, and I'm very humbled to run and serve the people of the Indiana 5th District. So, I really think of a quote that really means a lot to me, and that is, a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, but an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. And I can tell you that's why I got into the state and the public service in the state house, and that's why I'm running for the Indiana 5th. I believe that that optimism and the attitude of it's possible is very important.
Looking ahead, we talked off camera. You have about 4 pillars, right, that you're running on. What are those?
The reason I run, I told you about this optimism, and when I think about why I run for Congress, and I can tell you that you run for Congress to build people up, to lift people up, give them a hand up. That's what America's about. It's not about this identity politics and running to the nearest media and complaining. It's really about giving people opportunity. And that's actually why I believe that I'm the best candidate for the Indiana 5th. So there are 4 that I believe that are very critical. One, of course, is generational poverty. Generational poverty is something that can be solved. What we have to do is we have to put dignity back in work. We have to get rid of this negative stigmatism about working with your hands, because folks, we know, Phil, we know that that's wrong. We've seen the careers, we know the money can be made, and that's where you start with removing generational poverty from our country. Second thing, of course, is we got to get rid of some of this regulation from Congress and Biden that has been piled on businesses and on people's liberty. We don't really need to hire 65,000 IRS agents to police America. What we need to do is make our tax code so that it can be figured out. And I can tell you that this regulation is stymieing business. It's keeping entrepreneurs on the sideline, and it's literally putting people out of business. And so we got to fix that. And of course, we got to secure the border. I don't think there's anybody that disagrees with securing the border except for Congress and the president. And so we have to make sure that we secure the border. We got to keep people out of this country that want to kill our kids, with fentanyl. We don't want people in this country that want to destroy America. And so we have to build the wall, and we have to secure the border. And of course, we got to live by a budget. The American public every day has to live by a budget. Gale or Electric, the company that I own and run has to live by a budget. But it seems that the federal government has decided they don't have to live by a budget, and we're passing that on to our kids. And I got to tell you, it's got to stop. And so got to build a budget, live within our means.
Obviously, I talk to a lot of politicians. I hear that all the time from both sides. So do you take aim at the Republicans as well as the Democrats on that one?
Well, what I take aim on is I think we actually have to have great policy, and I got to tell you, it is hard to get policy passed right now. I understand that. And so I don't take aim. The reason I'm running for the 5th is because I believe I can work inside the federal government and in Congress to actually figure that out, just like we did with Ways and Means. Ways and Means in Indiana, we've had a balanced budget. I am all for a balanced budget amendment, and I can tell you we've had a balanced budget. That's why Indiana is admired across the United States, because of our fiscal position and other things.
Without getting too far into the weeds, and you touched upon it just now, pull the curtain back a little bit and explain to the folks at home who are watching what it's like to get these types of pieces of legislation passed, because it's a lot of deals that are being made, a lot of conversations that are being had. So how hard is it? Was there anything that when you came into state politics, your eyes opened up on.
I mean, no, I really relate it to our business. I mean, you don't just put a concept in your business and say, boom, be done.
Right.
I mean, you have to work it. I mean, you literally have to be a workhorse, not a show horse. Show horses never get anything done because all they're out there is mouthpiece talking and talking and talking. What really has to happen is you got to be a workhorse. So you got to meet with all the shareholders, those that are for it and those that are against it. And we've got to be able to come to a budget. Like for Indiana, I mean, that budget starts like the first day of January and crossed the line the last night at like midnight, let's say. That was the 23 budget. And that took tremendous effort, tremendous work, long hours, long days.
I'm almost out of time, but I want to get two more questions and your thoughts on the job that Congresswoman Spartz did during her time.
I would just say that, Congresswoman Spartz has been there for 4 years. She continues to talk about how the government's broken. I can't find out what she's done to help with this problem. And when she decided to get out of the race last year, that's when I decided to get in the race. And so with her flip-flopping on, I'm going to get back in the race with 3 or 4 days left, that was very disappointing to the voters, very disappointing to me and the other folks running. It's going to be a tough race, but I'm up for the challenge.
All right, coming up, we'll show you what happens when you put 8 candidates for governor in a room and ask them how they'll contain health care costs. Welcome back. Indiana's candidates for governor say transparency and reforms are key to bringing down health care costs. The Republican candidates for governor, plus presumptive Democratic nominee Jennifer McCormick and Libertarian nominee Donald Rainwater, took part in a candidate forum on Tuesday. And here's more on their health care plans in their own words.
Healthcare is a challenge. Energy prices are a challenge in Indiana, but from a healthcare perspective, we need to increase competition among hospitals. We need to make sure that our physicians are free to compete and they're not tied up with non-compete agreements. We need to have transparency in pricing, and then we need to get everybody in a room. We need to get the hospitals in a room, the physicians' practices. We need to get the insurance companies, the pharmacy benefit managers, and pharma in a room and figure out a solution to lower Indiana's healthcare costs. At the same time, we need to increase outcomes. We have a rural health challenge. People in families in Angola need to get in an ambulance and drive to Fort Wayne to have a child. We have a healthcare delivery issue and we have a healthcare cost issue. It's going to take a business outsider to get everybody in the room to solve that problem. Folks like me who've been in business for 40 years, we're problem solvers. We're not experts in healthcare. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in healthcare. What I am is an expert in solving problems, getting people in the room and coming up with a solution that lowers costs for Hoosiers.
I will focus on healthcare because our lives and our livelihoods depend upon it. And so what we will do, and as governor, I will lead an initiative to bring together all the stakeholders. Because currently, we are focusing on one stakeholder in Indiana, and that is the hospitals. And yes, they do play a role. But quite honestly, we have other stakeholders who play a role. So being able to include not just the hospitals, but the doctors, the pharmaceuticals, the pharma benefits, the insurance companies, the manufacturers, and small business owners in a room figuring out how do we holistically look at lowering the costs while focusing on competitiveness, but also accessibility, affordability, and transparency. You can go buy a car and shop around, but if you want a knee replaced, good luck. And so one of the other focuses that we will have in addressing healthcare is mental illness and addiction. 60% of absenteeisms are due to employees that are struggling with mental illness and addiction. Focusing on mental illness, that is what we need to do.
I think there's 2 issues, maybe even 3. One is we definitely hear across the state of Indiana a desire for more transparency in healthcare. When do you buy a consumer product and then find out later what it costs? And so there's a deep desire for people to see more transparency in the pricing of healthcare and to have more competition. There's another issue, though. We have 6 nonprofit hospitals that have $35 billion of cash profits on Wall Street. And we have called for that, about 30% of that to come back in an Indiana Main Street Fund to be reinvested in Indiana. because we know that when you invest in Wall Street, they invest in the southern and western United States, not back in Indiana. So here we have profits made from Hoosiers that are on Wall Street that we're calling for 30% to be reinvested back in Main Street. That's a win-win-win for everybody. That's a win for communities, it's a win for the hospitals, and it's a win for the people of Indiana. Because as you grow an economy, that's going to benefit the hospitals, right? So these are the two issues that we are going to focus on when it comes to healthcare.
What other industry is there where you go and buy something and you don't know how much it's going to cost until after you've gotten the service? If you go to you get an airline ticket, you're going to go to fly to Chicago. You get the flight and you come back later and find out what it was costing. Nobody does that. The hospital costs are outrageous. You can have the same procedure that can range in price of $4,000 to $44,000, and there's no correlation between the quality of the service that you get. That has to stop. It seems to me that there is an intentional effort to confuse the public in terms of what expenses are out there, what procedures are being done, all in an attempt to confuse and daze the end user. We're going to have to get on top of this. We need to make sure that the costs are transparent, that people understand what their services are, and then we can improve the quality of the service once we've made sure that we understand the price of the service.
Hospital monopolies did not happen overnight, and it was under a one-party rule that it happened. And we can all sit and admit it did not happen overnight. We need to address it. There is a lack of accountability. There's a lack of transparency. We need to address it. So there's no question. But also, where's the conversation about we have to be a state who will attract and retain high-quality health providers. We cannot continue to chase them out of Indiana. We cannot continue to watch all those great minds that are going through our programs leave the state of Indiana. We have to address that issue as well. I agree, substance abuse, mental health. When I was in office as state superintendent, we hit those hard, not just for kids, but resources for families. As soon as I walked out the door, those resources came down. Those resources came down. So there's a whole lot we can do in the healthcare, but the first thing is we need to fight to restore our rights and our freedoms for everybody with healthcare decisions.
Folks, I hear a lot about hospitals, but what I haven't heard is about health care insurance. Imagine if you were a business owner who every time somebody walked in, they could tell you what they were going to pay for your product, and it was always going to be a different price based on what bank they had their money in. That's what health insurance is doing. Folks, we have a regulation problem all over the country, not just in the state of Indiana, but federally. And we need to figure out how to deregulate health insurance, healthcare providers. We need to reduce the cost of a college education so that a healthcare provider can get through college and not owe for the next 200 years. There's a ton of problems, and it all focuses on over-regulation by our state and federal government.
Less government, lower taxes, less regulation. These are conservative principles that we are supposed to be living by. We're not doing that in the state of Indiana. What's obvious is the elephant in the room that we just got out of COVID-19. That should concern you. I have no idea why we're not directly addressing that. So our administration is focused on why is it that in COVID-19 we closed down all of our businesses? How did we as a government manage that? We're looking at the non-compete contracts that was mentioned by Brad. That's a big deal because doctors are feeling like they can't branch out and they can't compete. There is a real serious problem in this nation with government overreach. And if we don't solve that, we're going to lose our freedoms. COVID is proof of that. We should be paying attention.
I got sick and tired of hearing that. It was back in 2008 when you had the chance, if you were going to stick your neck out and actually do something about it, completely change the system. We were large enough to self-insure at that time. Small businesses ought to be able to do that by pooling and associating. But when you do it, we cut costs by over 50% based upon wellness and prevention and created healthcare consumers out of my own employees. You may want to put in an application there, don't run the place anymore, have not had a premium increase in 15 to 16 years. You're poking the biggest bear in our state, when you want to tell them to be transparent, be competitive, get rid of the barriers to entry, I'm the only one they're coming after because they know I'm going to do it, and it'll be to the benefit of all of you, and I've already done it in my own business.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team on new cell phone rules in school and a rare veto by the governor. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Allie Bartlett and Democrat Dana Black. Well, the Indiana General Assembly lost one of its own on Friday, ladies. State Senator Jean Breaux died after a battle with health problems. She had served in the state Senate since 2006. Unfortunately, we have to talk about this week. It's a very sad story. Dana, what to you will be Senator Breaux's legacy?
Absolutely, and thank you for taking the time to acknowledge someone who served our community honorably. I happen to know her personally, and her legacy will always be leaving the ladder down for the next young lady who wants to do something in Indiana to improve lives. She was generous with her time. She was a great mentor. It didn't matter how old you were, young or old, she was there to offer some advice. And she always asked the right questions to understand what was needed in the community. She will be missed. Her voice will be missed. Her leadership will be missed. Her mentorship. And personally, I know how much she encouraged me to continue the work that I do, and I will miss her friendship.
Yeah. Sorry for your loss. She was always good with us, too. Allie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, honestly. She has been a staple at the legislature for so many years. I had the pleasure of working with her when I was on House staff on some of the Power Women's Caucus initiatives, which is a bipartisan women's caucus. And she was always a joy to have around and a wealth of knowledge and experience. So she will certainly be missed.
No doubt about that. All right. Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts, ladies. On Monday, Governor Eric Holcomb issued what likely will be the final veto of his career. He rejected the compromise anti-Semitism bill because it did not, in his words, directly reference the 11 examples of anti-Semitism identified by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. He then issued a proclamation against anti-Semitism that did so. Allie, what do you make of that decision?
Yeah, it's not entirely unexpected. The way that the House originally wrote the bill did include the IHRA examples, and I know that that was an important factor in many discussions throughout the iterations of the bill. The bill as it passed obviously was a good effort toward achieving this goal of promoting anti-Semitism in the state of Indiana, but I think it is understood widely why he made this choice, and issuing the proclamation kind of just reinforced that.
Dana, same question.
Yeah, I actually agree with Allie, but for slightly different reasons. Even though he vetoed it, doesn't mean it's going to stick because they have the ability to override his veto. Right. But that being said, I'm glad he vetoed it because it didn't include why not we define what Islamophobia is and why are we singling out one particular religion that we are going to, define as hate speech, but not the others. And I think that was the biggest problem for me was, wait a second, unfortunately, people who serve Islam are getting the same level of backlash as our folks who in the Jewish community. I believe that we should talk about all of it and nobody should be discriminated against.
Well, speaking of legislation, the governor recently signed a bill to prohibit students from using cell phones in the classroom. And I'm almost out of time, but I want to get your thoughts on this one as well. Dana, we'll go to you first on this, about 30 seconds.
I think this is a good thing. It's one less thing that teachers have to worry about. They're already underpaid and overworked, so they shouldn't have to police how kids are using their cell phones. I understand they're going to be there for emergencies, but teachers got enough to do. So take them away so kids can pay attention.
Allie?
Yeah, not much disagreement amongst us today. I think it's a good thing. And also I like that it leaves flexibility to the school corporations to determine how best to implement the policy. So while it does provide uniformity across the school corporations that the ban must be in place, it does leave a level of flexibility for how it's implemented.
Yeah. We all did it, right? We were able to do it and make it through.
Right?
Good to see you both. Thank you so much for coming on, as always. We'll see you soon. Yeah, thank you. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. Also, be sure to tune in at 6:30 this coming Wednesday evening for our special governor candidates debate. And we'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30 as always. Have a great rest.
From Wish TV, This is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.